All right, good morning, everyone. Well, I want to welcome you to our bi-monthly builders call and just acknowledge right up front that we do this call the first and third weeks of the month. And sometimes there's topics and sometimes there's not. And they're more organic when we get on the calls. However, last night as I was going to bed, the two topics that are on the table for today, based on some conversations that I've had and some things that have been going on, figured it would be great to create a larger community conversation around. So the purpose of these calls is for anyone that is within our organization here at EXP that wants to learn and master the skill set of building and using your influence to build and grow and nurture an organization. And so this conversation is for people that have no experience doing that, who have a lot of experience doing that, and have built sizable organizations, and for everyone in between to create a larger conversation and a mastermind around. So when we do have topics, that doesn't mean we're not open for questions. At any point in time, if there's a question you want to put in the chat, feel free to put it in there and we'll work it into the conversation. And if there'll be more conversational times when you'll be invited to come off mute and share or push back or challenge. We like that. Different perspectives, all learning and growing together. So as we get started, the topics that for today, we're going to start with the first one, which is that professionals sift and sort and amateurs sell. How many of you have ever heard that statement before? Just by a show of hands. Okay, Jeff has heard it. Tell us about what your understanding of that statement is.
It's been a minute, but just through the network marketing experience, just trying not to sell somebody, sift and sort, meet them where they're at. Are they going to be a builder maybe in the future? Right now, they just want to sell, real estate for the purposes of EXP.
Okay,
That's kind of how I understood it.
all right. Who else has an idea about that they'd like to share? The idea being that professionals sift and sort, amateurs sell. There's no wrong ideas, by the way.
Well, to me, it has to do with it being a team sport, right? Try not to do it all yourself, bring in validation from other parties.
I love that. So here's what I want you to bring to mind. How many of you love to bake or have ever baked anything that involves flour and a sifter? Selena, I know Selena's amazing at baking, Randolph, and Mariella. Okay, I've never baked. I love to eat baked goods. However, I'm not a baker unless it's like those pre-made cookies that come in the sleeve that just need to be cut and thrown in the oven. I don't think that really counts as baking. I think that counts as like oven heating and watching a timer. So, but for those of you that are bakers or that have baked, I want you to bring to mind preparing the recipe. And why would you use a flour sifter? I'm not qualified to answer this question because I am not a baker. So it will require a baker on the call.
It softens it. It makes sure that there's no clumps. There's nothing in it.
Okay, cool. And so if I'm doing this visual with a flour sifter and sorter. So what Selena said is absolutely true. Yep, it's going to sift through, it's going to soften it, it's going to make sure there's no clumps. However, would you agree that if there was like something that maybe wasn't flour in the flour as you're sifting and sorting that was larger and not a fit or not a match, it would be left in the canister, right? Once all the flour has sifted through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we look at it's like this is kind of a strange conversation to be having of sorts because if we're selling real estate, we're in the business of selling. And the skill set around selling from a lot of people's perspective is, well, we need to sell them on what the opportunity is. And there's a whole process around sales. There's a language of sales. There's a psychology of sales. There's all these things that have to do with sales. And yet if we come at this conversation from a different perspective and that our job is really to sift and to sort And when we learn how to do that in a professional way and at a high level, it takes the selling out of that dynamic. It really starts to shift things. And so, how many of you know that you have developed some sales skills over the years? Sales skills like negotiating, sales skills like being able to influence someone in a conversation, sales skills like being able to listen and discern what someone's needs are and then position ahead of or in front of their need to be a solution, right? How many of you know that you've developed some of those sales skills? And in sales, have you ever had the experience where you feel very clear based on what you know for the consumer that's in front of you, and they're not clear, and now you're in a conversation of attempting to use your sales skills to help them get clear so that they move forward and they take action, right? In the context of buying and selling homes, maybe that's getting them to list with you when they are, have multiple other agents that they're looking at, or maybe it's your buyer that you did a great buyer consultation with and you think you know what they want and you're showing them exactly what they've said they want and they don't pull the trigger to write an offer. And so now there's these sales skills that come into play. Well, what happens with this in the context of using our influence with others as it relates to building and growing an organization with EXP? A lot of times we can divert to sales skills through using our enthusiasm and what we perceive as the value and what we can identify as gaps in their business or opportunities for them. And we end up in this energy of selling somebody into a concept or selling them into an idea where the energy, you can feel it. It's like you're pushing it on them. You're attempting to convince them a little bit. Has anybody ever had that experience? Just by a show of hands. Like, if you haven't, that just means you've never had a conversation about this. Right? Because these are things. And so it's like, wow, if I'm more excited, if I'm more enthusiastic, if I'm more passionate about it, if I just tell them more about how I can connect the dots for them and how this is going to be the greatest thing for them. And they're sitting there looking back at me like, yeah, I feel like you're being really pushy right now. And it's this lose-lose situation, because what's true is that all of the things that you are saying, while well-intentioned, could be absolutely true. However, if they're not able to be heard or received or absorbed by the person that's on the other side of that conversation, then it's kind of lost. So when we come to this idea of amateurs sell and professionals sift and sort, think about this in using this in a conversation around someone's business, their life, their future, and the opportunity that we have with EXP. When someone is selling and that energy, like, I'm attached to the outcome, right? So just think about psychologically the dynamics of this decision. I'm attached to the outcome. I want this seller to sell with me, or I want this buyer to buy with me, and let's do it and let's move forward in the context of building an organization with EXP. I like this agent. I want to work with them. I want them to join my organization, right? And so there is this going after energy. So I want you to think about this. Like, I've used this before as a visual. For those of you that aren't on camera yourself, I'm going to ask you to at least look at the camera right now if you can, if you're just listening in. And my hands, as they're standing up in the air right now, represent the energies of two people. This person is you, that's wanting to use your energy, your influence to build and grow an organization. And this is somebody that is not yet with you, that doesn't see what you see in the way that you see that, and doesn't see that for themselves. So in a selling conversation, a lot of my energy is going to be going after people. What happens when you go after people energetically?
They tend to run away or go in a different direction.
They do, right? And when we go after people and we feel them moving away, sometimes what's our inclination?
Chase.
Chase.
Yeah, we go
To
after
push
the
harder.
and now like it's game on. I'm like, I am that girlfriend you don't know that you're in love with yet and want to spend the rest of your life and have 5 babies with, and I'm going to show you why I'm that person, right? And that just never works out. Sifting and sorting is this conversation. It doesn't mean that you sit and wait for people to notice you on social media and ask you, because you could be waiting a long time for that to happen. But what it does mean is that you energetically get a skill set on how to put yourself out there and pull back. And in a sifting and sorting conversation, if the person in front of you is actually a prospect at all, they're going to lean in towards you. And so it's this dance when you're sifting and sorting. Think about that flour sifter, right? Where we've got the flour and we're sifting and sorting, and the flour is going through. That process is multiple conversations. That process is getting an actual overview on what's available for them in their business, like an official overview, like the model explained would be an example. That sifting and sorting process is conversations with multiple people outside of you that are senior partners to meet the community, to have a different set of conversation, to have a different experience, to get a different perspective. All of that is the sifting and sorting that softens the flour or the person as they're putting those things and connecting the dots for themselves. And when they come out the other end of that sifting and sorting process, they will know and they will be able to clearly see, yes, this is something that I want to do. And yes, I want to do it with you and this group of people. And so the sifting and sorting process is a very energetically, it's an energy game, right? Of how to meet people, interact with them in a way that they are actually coming towards you versus you going after them. Erica's on the call today. And Erica, I don't know if you're able to come off mute. I know you're not able to come off video, but the example of your niece and the process that she went through to decide on her own that this was going to be the direction that she wanted to go. Are you able to come off and speak about that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually she started a couple years ago, and when I was with KW, and so she started I'm in California and she's in Florida. And so, but she just, I'm coaching her just out of the love of my heart for my niece. And so, we started talking just about what she wanted and where she wanted to go, and what she was getting, what she wasn't getting. And I never, ever pushed her to EXP at all, right? And so she started kind of exploring a little bit on her own, and watching what we were doing and watching what other people were doing in the marketplace. And then we started opening up conversations about it and just where she wanted to go, and is she getting what she wanted? Because I think so much of it's the platform. When you're trying to attract someone, I mean, I was a team leader for about 8 years for KW. And so when you start realizing what you're trying to attract, you realize that people are already looking, right? They're looking for something that's going to be the platform and the people that they want to align with and where they want to go. And so it just becomes, I mean, most of the time, by the time I'm ever talking to someone, they're already probably 50% through the process. I'm not having to pull them, right? They're looking for somewhere else to go. And I think that's such an important piece. Like just with Eleanor, it was, she came here and she's like, oh my gosh, the collaboration, I talked about the collaboration here at EXP, but she goes, it is unreal compared to, she goes, I thought it was good at KW. She's like, it didn't even hold a candle to what I've got and the resources that I have here at EXP. And so it's just been fun to watch that and watch where she's going now. I mean, she's 24 years old and she's just, I mean, I wish I had what she had at 24. Just look at that and go, what an opportunity, that she's putting herself in front of some really influential people to be able to get her to her goals faster, and I think that's just been the cool process of, you're not pulling people, you're attracting people, so that's such an important piece when you are recruiting people. Is there's always going to be people that are going to be like, I'm upset with my broker. I don't like what I have here. And so they're looking for some golden ticket. Those people will always be looking for something else. It's something I've realized, right? It's when they go, hey, I'm seeing what you're doing and it's different. And I want that. You know, they're going towards something versus going away from something. It's just a huge difference. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing. So to, give some illumination into those of you that weren't involved in that process one-on-one with her niece Eleanor, is that she had that relationship, and so she had those conversations going about her business. And in the sifting and sorting process, then Erica brought me into the conversation. And so we were able to have a conversation, and she had an experience there. And it wasn't a, are you like, wanting to join EXP conversation? It was more about her business and where she was wanting to focus on, new construction and development and investment opportunities. And so I thought to myself, who do I know in our organization? And there's a person in our organization that their number 2 source of business outside of sphere of influence comes from what Eleanor wants to build. So not connected to Erica at all, however, someone else in our organization. And so I reached out and I said, hey, would you be willing to, do a call with Eleanor? I told her the situation. She said, absolutely. And by the end of that conversation, it was, well, this is what I want to do next. It wasn't even an asking her. It was she had gone through a sifting and sorting process where energetically we were doing this, right? And giving her something and then seeing how she received it off in her sharing more, offering her, hey, if I could get a conversation set up, is that a conversation? Yes, I would love to meet that person. And so it was this every way. So when you think about sifting and sorting versus selling, and this being this energy like this with your energy here and the other person going this way, which is, a lot, versus this kind of thing that's tiny little micro movements energetically where you're in, you're moving, you're in, you're moving, you're in, you're moving, you're in, you're moving. And before you know it, that person has moved themselves through a process all on their own. You don't need to sell anybody on the value, or if you have to sell them on the value, you're going to have to get up and sell them on the value tomorrow when they run into a challenge or obstacle and they're like, oh, well, I'm not sure because this bright shiny thing over here is now I'm hearing about this and maybe this is the direction that I go. And now you've got to go resell them on what you sold them before because they didn't do it themselves. So this concept and idea about sifting and sorting is for professionals. Like, man, if I just know there's a bunch of people called flour going into the sifter and sorter, and we're going to sift and sort through, and whoever comes out the bottom is going to come out the bottom and they're going to go, yes, let's go. No, not for me, not right now. Yes, let's go. No, not for me right now. All of a sudden, my energy can be reserved for meeting people where they're at. And just this very simple thing, this sifting thing that we're doing, right? Versus, oh my gosh, I have to be this genius. I've got to go after them. I have to have all of this, energy and convincing and, all of the things that go in a very skilled sales process for sure. However, at the end of the day, how many of you actually want to be sold versus inspired? How many of you want to be sold versus influenced? How many of you want to be sold versus like feeling like you have an opportunity that's been open to you to step into? And oh my goodness, I am so grateful for the door that is opened in front of me. And now I want to walk through it. So before we move into the second topic for today, which is managing energy at all 3 stages of building an organization, would love any questions, comments, feedback, anything you're inspired to share or want to clarify.
I have a question. Sorry, I couldn't get my camera off mute or on there for a minute. So I guess I am a salesperson. I was corporately trained in sales, so there's a natural part of this how I show up sometimes. But I guess my question is, what are people, and maybe this is open to anybody, when you're calling people that already know you and booking those appointments, even if you haven't talked to them in a while, what is this? What are you saying? Because I hear a lot of scripts that people are using for cold calls and things like that. I'm like, hey, are you open to an opportunity? But is that the same script? Because that's where I feel sometimes that I even start off coming off salesy, and I have to back it out. So I'd love any suggestions.
I can chime in. Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
Hey, Will.
So for me, if I know them, I'll reach out and I'll just acknowledge the relationship, and then I'll say, hey, I know they've been watching. I was like, I don't know if you've been watching, what's happened over the last 2 years, but I made one small change and it changed my entire business, And then I just asked them, would they be open to a short conversation so that I can show them kind of what I saw, how it benefited me, and how it could benefit you. And that's it.
Thanks, Will.
So one of the conversations that I love having with people is, if I hadn't talked to you in a while, Katie, is, if it weren't for social media, I probably wouldn't know anything about you, but I see that stuff, you're very clearly, your son's pursuing a career in baseball, and you seem to be, sometimes you're in Hawaii and then sometimes you're here. And the bottom line is this year, I'm committed to a higher level of collaboration and success with people that I care about. And so I would love to grab 30 minutes where I can learn and understand more about what you're doing this year, what's working for you, what you're learning, and share some of the things that is working at a really high level for me and for us over here. And happy to share and collaborate that information. And if there's ways that, or there's opportunities that we can help each other, I would love to be in that conversation with you. Is that a conversation you're open to? And in that context, now, if I'm going to have a conversation with you, I'm not talking about me and all my stuff. It's really, where it's being recorded. So you can go back and grab the recording. Sorry, I couldn't say it the same way twice. If I attempted to say it, it comes out differently every time. But the essence is collaboration and creating a more tight-knit community. Selling real estate can be like being on an island. That's the bottom line. And so, I'm all for a meaningful collaboration, not collaboration for the sake of collaborating, meaningful collaboration. And so in that, now when I meet with you, Katie, there is the conversation of like, okay, I get your back and forth between Hawaii and California, and your son's doing great in baseball, but like, tell me about you. Like, what are you doing for business? What are you seeing that's working really well this year? What did you learn last year that you're integrating and changing this year in what you're doing? Like, what are the, top 3 things that you're working to create more, better, different in your business and your personal life this year? Like, I want to know what is like the totality of what's going on with you. And then in that, it's not so much about sharing on my end once we're in that conversation. It's more about I'm listening for the things that feel like they've got the most energy behind them and what you would share to open up a longer conversation, a secondary conversation at a different point in time. And so what that would be is like 1, maybe 2 things that you've mentioned. You mentioned this and you mentioned this. And within our community of people that I'm collaborating with, there's some people that have really created incredible things in that context already. And I know we've only got a half hour set up, but would love to continue our conversation and share what some of those things are and how we're doing it. Right now you're into a secondary conversation, because everything happening in a first conversation and an initial conversation is like, you're a yes, you're a no, and then you're moving on, and you're not going to be a yes in an initial conversation. So if it is truly about collaborating, creating relationships, opening those doors in a sifting and sorting process, right? And I may spend 30 minutes with you and be so energized that I want to spend another 30 minutes with you. And I may spend 30 minutes with you and be like, no, I am sifting and sorting, and it's just like, that's not a match of where I want to invest my energy. And so I get to decide then, right, based on that conversation as well, what's going to light me up as far as who do I want to invest in, who do I want to align with, and maybe it's you, maybe it's not you. in which case I still want to be a resource for you and point you in the direction of some great things, but I might not open up a larger conversation just because, like, man, that's not where I want my energy to go. Right. And so in that, in and of itself, that is a sifting and sorting in energy versus a selling energy. Because in a, you know, in a selling energy, it's like, I want to get the deal. I want to get every deal. No, I don't want to get anyone, and I don't want everyone. Right? I want who's aligned with my vision, my values, somebody that I'm energized to be spending more time with and investing in, learning with and learning from. Right. And so this idea of sifting and sorting is an energy that you bring to a conversation. There's no desperation in it. There's no pressure in it. There is nothing other than pure attraction. Right. And it can be created in small conversations. It can be created in 10 to 15 minutes. Right. It doesn't need 30. And honestly, for people that are busy and are succeeding and doing things at a high level, they're going to much prefer a 15-minute meaningful conversation over a 30-minute not as meaningful conversation, just for the sake of having had the conversation. All right, fantastic. Any other comments, questions, feedback around this idea of sifting and sorting versus selling? Based on all of the little red buttons with the line through it that are all muted, I guess that's a no. So we'll keep on going.
Now, real quickly, I'll just say I really appreciate the idea of attracting people, as you all are saying, that are aligned with your visions. And that paradigm shift for me, or just those statements alone to me, are going to enact a paradigm shift in how I am approaching this. So thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Because you're not necessarily attracting. Yes, sir.
Hey guys, with that being said, Randy, can you give them an example? Because you were attracted to me by
100%. 100%.
So talk about that.
Absolutely. I was one of those who was stuck in my business and just deciding, which direction I wanted to, I needed to go. And I knew I was always stuck kind of around 10, 12 deals a year. And I was like, man, I gotta, like, something's gotta break for me. Something has to shift. So I wasn't even thinking like rev share. That was the last thing I was thinking. I just wanted to be a better agent. And so I was drawing the will. I was checking social media out like one Sunday, maybe a few months ago. And I was just scrolling through social media, and I saw an agent that I respect, who was in my former Remax office in Santa Clarita, who was following this dude in Chino Hills. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what's going on with him? And so this agent I really respect. I respect her a lot. She's done well in the business many years. So I was like, I wanted to find out. I was just curious about what he was doing and what Will was doing. So I just kind of went down the Will Higgins rabbit hole for like about 2.5 hours. I was just scrolling through everything he did. I saw all the videos, and then I reached out to him on social media, and surprisingly, he literally called me like in the next 10 minutes, and we talked for like an hour. And I just knew at that point, I was like, yeah, this is the direction I wanted to go. And again, I wanted to be a better agent. I wasn't necessarily thinking rev share, or I wasn't even thinking about the full benefit of EXP. I was just wanting to be a better agent, and the success Will is having attracted me as an agent without question. And so absolutely. So I appreciate what was just shared, because it definitely is going to give me a paradigm shift with regard to how I'm approaching the business. And so thank you so much. Hopefully that spoke to that point.
It did, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And we had somebody on the Free Friday coaching call a couple of weeks ago who's been hugely successful, over 20 years in the industry as an agent, Bob Mangold. He's not in our organization with EXP. However, he did. If you missed it on the Free Friday coaching call, list to last, I thought, oh yeah, I know what this conversation is going to be. And it was not that conversation at all. And one of the things he talked about was client attraction. How you attract clients to you, called sellers and buyers, which is a whole different mindset shift as well, because there's a conversation and a dialogue around that. So if you want to catch that recording, you can grab it on our YouTube channel. And to find that, you can go to empirebuilders.pro/resources. Selena, will you put that in the chat? And you will find the free Friday coaching call recordings in there. Bob Mangold on List to Last is that conversation around client attraction as well. So for you wanting to do that in all aspects of the business, that would be a very supportive resource and tool for you to know about. Thank you for sharing. Yes, John.
Good morning, everyone. Randolph, thanks for sharing. So that brought back to me the whole idea of community and building a community. And Casey, you speaking about, sometimes you don't want someone, you talk to them and you realize that's not a good fit for me. I don't want to bring that person into my organization. And, Randolph, to me, what you were talking about is authenticity, because when I came into EXP, I was trying to be everybody but myself. I was trying to be Brent Gove. I was trying to be Jesse Zagorski. And it felt so inauthentic. And all my conversations they just felt yucky because I wasn't being myself. And of course, I was reaching out and attracting the wrong people, or the people that weren't really authentic to what my values are, or the community that I wanted to grow. And I've still got a lot of work to do, but things got a lot easier for me in the sense of conversations when I became more authentic to who I am. And then by nature of that, simply started attracting people that are more aligned with my goals and my values, and it became a little bit easier as opposed to chasing.
Love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, John. Okay, so with the time that's remaining, and it's going to be quick, so we may have a secondary conversation on it. I'm going to do my best to communicate as concisely and effectively as possible. In the second half of the conversation for today, it's around managing your energy and others' energy in the 3 different phases of growing and building. So let's talk about what the 3 different phases are. Phase number 1 is startup. Phase number 2 is growth. And phase number 3 is advanced growth. And there is different energy at each one of these phases. So if you think about when you're starting something, like when you catch a vision and you're like, yes, this is a direction I'm going to go. Maybe you think back to when you joined EXP. What is the energy or emotion that you had personally that had you move forward in that direction with that decision? This is something that everyone could comment on because you all came from somewhere else to EXP. So think about the energy, the emotion, the feeling that you had about making that decision and deciding to make a change.
I was crazy excited, and I think I kept that same energy throughout. But I watched the video and I paced afterwards, and I was like, this is something I got to try, and I've kept the same energy since.
Okay, love that. So excited. Who else? Some of you look like it would be really good for you to be excited. There's some serious faces on here.
I was excited because I thought there was a way to actually retire from real estate, which I don't think exists without EXP.
Okay, so excited. So in that startup phase, and Randy, is it okay if I call you Randy, even though it says Randolph on the screen?
Yes, please do. Everybody calls me Randy.
Okay.
Please.
I don't like being everybody. However, I want to call you the name you want to be called. So.
Hey, no, you're good. You're good. I'm not offended. I get Randall, Ray, Ralph. It doesn't matter. It's all good.
Okay.
As long as the check don't bounce.
All right, perfect. All right. So Randy, you described the same thing in seeing Will, engaging with Will. It was just like, I want to be a better agent. There's hope associated in the startup phase. There's a lot of energy associated with it because there's excitement that goes with it. It's new, and it is easy to be excited about things that are new, right? But how many of you, like, if you think about that in the context of a personal relationship, are you as excited today as you were 20 years ago when you went out for the first time and you're like, oh my goodness, that's the one for me? It is really challenging to maintain that level of excitement over the course of a long time, right? Now, this is the great thing because there's so much energy. So the an important principle to know and to understand when you're building an organization is that, and this, don't tell your wife. I won't tell your wife, Will, I promise. New blood is the lifeblood of an organization. And that may sound like very predatory. It's not predatory. New blood is the lifeblood of an organization. Think about that. If you are constantly aligning with people that are having an experience of hope, that are getting excited, that are bringing energy to you in conversation, and those are the kind of people and those are the experiences that you're having every day or on a consistent basis, even if it's not every day, let's just say on a consistent basis, if you've been here 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, your energy, that level of excitement, enthusiasm, passion is going to be renewed and re-sparked every time you have a new person that is in that startup phase, that's putting the pieces together, that's having the hope lights go off, that's seeing a path forward, and that is energized and excited, right? So the energy in startup or in the beginning is one of excitement. So for those of you that are, yeah, new blood keeps me in my toes. I love that. Love that, Mo. So it is the like, oh my goodness, it's like when you have a kid and they're seeing the world and having an experience for the first time and you're seeing it through their eyes. You may have been seeing that for years of your life and it's not so exciting, but you watch your kid have that experience for the first time and you're like, oh my goodness, we're at Disneyland and the lines are 5 hours long. Isn't this so fun? Because my favorite cartoon character just walked past me. Whereas like if that wasn't your kid having that experience, you may or may not be in that energy, right? Will, you were going to add something.
Yeah, so this couldn't be further from the. This is so true because when we bring on key partners, we do these videos, and those videos create so much energy and enthusiasm every time we bring someone on, so that we always get more people. It's almost like taking a listing, right? When there's a listing, there's two more. So it's the same thing with the agent attraction. Also, something that really excites me, like I think Maisha's on, and I have a new partner named Kim. When I hop onto a Zoom with them, and they have on like EXP merch that I didn't give them, that they went out and bought themselves. Oh my God, that gives me so much energy because when I worked in corporate America, we got bonuses like in February. So once a year we got a bonus. But the company store would basically sell out that February because the morale was so high. So I equate that to when I see my agents with EXP merch on, their morale is really high, so it excites me.
I love that. So the startup phase, like that phase is it is when things are the easiest because everything that the energy that goes with that, it's the newness, it's the excitement, it's like the honeymoon phase, it's the hope, it's the I'm moving from where I was to here and this is a new direction and this has opened up new possibilities for my life and it's fantastic. However, not too long after the startup phase, there's going to be some kind of challenge and obstacle. And I mean, if you guys haven't had it, you'll hit it, right? Where it's like, oh, well, and who knows what that challenge or obstacle is, right? It could be some issue that goes with, how your onboarding process goes, or it could be some news headline that comes out that's like, what? Or it could be like you didn't have an understanding of a couple of things and you thought they were going to be one way and they're actually, different, right? Will's calling that uninformed optimism. So like shortly after that startup phase is, those kind of things come up. That's natural. And when you're working with someone, that's why it's important to be in communication through that transition. We talk about the 3 phases of someone coming in. Phase 1 being their due diligence, where they're like, getting all of the information to make a decision. Phase 2 is they've made the decision and now they're actually making the move to transfer themselves and their business here. And then phase 3 is the integration phase of like, okay, now your license is physically here. What are we growing, working, developing for you and your business and your future? And how closely are we aligned in doing that? So all of those things happen in the startup phase, but then there's also this other stuff happening in the background. And so energetically, it's important to know that. And that's where the relationships become so key. Now, in the context of growing and building an organization, when you go into the growth phase of you're actually growing and building an organization, it goes from 1 to 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 50 to 100 to 150 to 200 to 300 to 500. Like, that is the growth phase, and that's going to happen differently for different people. So that's meaning it's going to happen over different periods of time. And so some people that may happen fast, some people that may over the course of months, some people that may happen with over the course of years. Regardless of what your personal timeline is in that journey, that is still the journey that's called the growth phase. So what are some of the natural feelings, emotions that come with the growth phase for those of you that are in that phase?
Ooh-wee. So, when I first started, again, I came in and I focused on production. And my first thought was, oh my God, my production is going to slip. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I need to be focused on production. I can't do both. Those were the feelings.
Okay. So managing that balancing act between, producing and growing, because it's something new, right? It's like riding a bicycle. You're getting your feet under you and getting a balance with that. For those of you going into like growth phase, now that there's like a conversation around skilling up, because as you're in front of more people and your organization's growing and building, and there's a bunch of Me Too companies that have popped up, then people are like, well, what about this? And what about that? And now they're looking at this and now they're looking at that. And all of that happens in the growth phase as well. You're going through a different set of conversations based on the sheer number of conversations that you are having. And so in the growth phase, how you manage your own energy is really important in the context of number one, remembering that you are not the person, you are a person. You are not the person, you are a person. And in the growth phase where you get enough to where you can, yes, you can be having these conversations on your own. A lot of people will go solo and stop plugging in, stop using the three-way calls, stop plugging into larger conversations like this, or do it haphazardly. And then all of a sudden the challenges and obstacles that happen in the different phases of growth can feel overwhelming. It can energetically take you out of the energy that is effective for attraction, right? And so this is a blind spot for a lot of people that go through growth because they're like, oh, I know how to do this, I got it. And they naturally stop using or utilizing the system. And when I say the system, I'm talking about the people, the collaboration, the organization, and everyone that's here to work together, because it's like, oh, I got it, I can do this, right? And I can look on this call and go, and I can I can gauge the experience of a lot of you and your energy based on you being out growing and building and how many times I'm on a Zoom call with you talking to your people. And the person that has brought the most energy to this conversation and call, just not coincidentally, has been the person that has happened to have me on the most calls of anyone that's on this Zoom. It's Will, right? He's got all kinds of other things going on. Social media is working for him great. Like he's, in production and he's doing attraction and growing and building and doing all the things. But it's not a coincidence that his energy is where it's at, and that he from a engagement is engaged at the highest level, right? So success leaves clues, and when you're in the growth phase, like remember, you lean in, don't lean out as you're growing. That's really important.
Can I add to the growth phase as
Yes,
well?
add away.
There's so much that happens in that growth phase, guys. Like it took me 8 months to go. I got to 150 fast, and it took me 8 months to go from 150 to 200, and now I'm about to shoot to 300. But in that phase, there was so much that happened, and two of the biggest things that propelled me forward was one, personal development. So going to PSI between that 150 and 200, and really focusing on my personal development, because we saw so many people leave, and you think it's and you just get really down about it when you have to really release that stuff. And then when I started focusing on what I could control, the people that were in the growth phase, and really just focusing on them and focusing on myself, that's when we got back into growth, and that's when things started to take off.
Casey, you're muted.
Thank you. Mary Ellen's question was 150 agents, yes, in the organization. Yep. So that is, when someone's in growth or wanting to be in growth, listen, your business is never going to outgrow or outpace where you have developed yourself personally too. That's the bottom line, because you have a lens that you see the world through. And as is in real estate sales, as is in building an organization, and it's the conversation that happens between your own two ears. It's your mindset. It's the conversations the things that maybe do or don't come out of your mouth. All of those things are going to be influencing how you show up and attract versus not attract. And the things that you do haphazardly or that you do consistently, all of that has to do with the level of how much and how far you're continuing to develop yourself. And in that, there is like the actual business will develop you as you're doing it, but then there's the proactive things. Will mention PSI as an actual vehicle for personal development to accelerate that process, right? And when we grow ourselves, like as the inside goes, so the outside goes. It cannot be any different. Whatever is within will be with, on the outside as well. And so when you look on the outside and you're like, wow, that's not what I want to see. That's not where I'm at. That's not, this is not reflective of like what I desire and what my vision is. Then great. What is the work to go do on the inside and to continue to do on the inside such that those things start to line up, right? And then you get in a groove. Like obviously Will is in a groove, right? He's in a groove and now he's got momentum, and he had some momentum and then felt like there was no momentum and everything was at a screeching halt and going backwards. And then he's reinvesting in himself, which changes his perspective. It changes his lens. It changes his personal energy and what he's willing to go out and do. And then, and now has like re-engaged all of that. So these are like all things that happen in the growth phase. And when you know this map, you can navigate the map. And if you want to be really proactive about it, you can jump in and navigate the map before you're even in that phase by investing in yourself, because investing in yourself is always going to accelerate that, right? So this is being on this call today as an example of investing in yourself in a different conversation and hearing different perspectives and staying plugged in, right? So maybe this is something you put on your calendar for the first and third Tuesdays of the month, and that it's a non-negotiable for you if that's something that's really important to you, right? It becomes, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm at the first and third Tuesdays of the month. It's a non-negotiable for me, right? So the third phase, and this is the final phase, is advanced growth. And Will, specifically for you and for people who have been here for at least a couple of years, between years 2.5 and years 4, it is where you get tired of telling the story, or can get tired of telling the story if you're not reinvigorated by the story you're telling and have not evolved the story you're telling. And so there was recently, and just not to mention any names, but to be transparent, there's somebody that's been with EXP for a few years, had an organization of over 1,500 agents that left recently. And, it's like the big chatter. Everyone's like, how could someone that has an organization of 1,500 agents leave? And, everyone's concerned about it. And not everyone, but in the, leadership conversations, it's like, how could you have an organization of 1,500 people and leave? And that just seems crazy, right? And what was said is that, that person left for opportunity. And I would tell you that is not why they left. And this is a very serious conversation. So if this is the only piece of the conversation that you listen to in a long-term thing, the person that left, I met, it was a couple, and I met them their very first beginning days at EXP. And at the event that I met them at, when we went back to our room that night, I said to my husband, Rick, I said, they'll be here, they won't be here more than 3 to 5 years. And he's like, why would you say that? And I said, because I could tell the way that they were talking about EXP and the way that they were talking about the direct sales company that they had been with in their experience, they won't be here for more than 3, maybe 5 years. And they were here right in the middle of that 3 to 5 years before leaving. So, people look around and they go, well, why did they leave? And, everyone's like, oh, well, they left because they thought they saw a better opportunity. And that's not what happens. So what happens is that people forget about the opportunity that they actually have, and they get tired between years 2.5 and 4. And it becomes like, when you're not in it for the long game, then bright shiny objects of wanting that energy of going into startup. Oh, well, I think I see an opportunity, and it feels so much better to be in startup than to be in what's called advanced growth, where you're going like an organization of 1,500. That may seem like a lot of agents to you guys that don't have organizations of that size, but in the scheme of things, it's not that many agents. That is not an advanced growth business. That is a growth business, right? So most people never make it to advanced growth, and advanced growth is like 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 agents. Those are advanced growth businesses that are here for the long haul, that ride different waves of momentum and energy and growth as they're happening, where there's growth, there's expansion and contraction, and expansion and contraction, and expansion and contraction. And what you're left with is you're growing and you're building and you're maturing an organization. That is the name of the game. That takes 8, 10, 12, 15 years to do in most cases, right? And so most people do not have that kind of long-term vision. And so we'll get into, and instead of ever getting into advanced growth in that 2.5 to 4 year window, even if they've got hundreds or maybe over 1,000 agents in their organization, they're still in that window where they haven't hit advanced growth. An advanced growth business is a totally different business than a growth business. And so when you understand the dynamics of the 3 phases and the energy, right? You get burned out, like, I'm tired of telling the story. Well, I just had, 50 of my agents that left and went to a different company, or, so many of them in production and they're not in production now because the market shifted, or, all of the different things that will naturally happen in any organization. When you as a leader of yourself understand the game that you're playing, you can be, I'm going to hop to here, to here, to here, to here, to here every 2.5 to 4 or 5 years, because I want to stay in a startup energy is the bottom line, and never actually grow something significant, because you're always going to return to that startup of, I got a bright shiny object, I got something new I'm chasing, and I like the feeling of what it feels like to be in that new story. Versus how do you re-energize and re-engage yourself through all different phases of the journey and of the process. This is the game of mastery, right? And if you look at anyone that's built anything significant, it has happened over the course of years, right? And all of the learning that goes with that. And so what I like to say for people that are committed to going into advanced growth, and I've watched this in our organization. I mean, we grow, we contract, we grow, we contract. Sometimes we shoot up and we have huge growth, and then we contract a little. And at the end of the day, we're growing. Sometimes it doesn't always look like it's growing in the moment, but we are, because when I look at the quality of people that are coming into our organization and the caliber of people that are coming into our organization, it's continued to get better and better and better and better over the course of time. It's refined. So in this context of going back to a sifting and sorting conversation, sometimes the sifting and sorting even happens when you're in growth mode and you've got an organization. And some people sift and sort themselves out because they weren't a long-term match anyways, and that's normal. It's part of the game. We talked about this at a leadership event last month, that 33% of any organization is going to be in growth. 33% of any organization is going to be in blame or upset about something, and 33% of any organization is going to be on their way out the door. And we get to decide, like, am I in growth? Am I in blaming and complaining about something, or on my way out? And just know, like, energetically, you and anybody that you're going to work with that's going to be in your organization is going to be in one of those 3 categories. And so it's a great check-in to just go, well, how am I managing my own energy, and what is there for me to do or to shift in those conversations? And then also to like know, like, and understand, like, Will, you and I were in conversation when things weren't feeling so good and it was feeling challenging and you were discouraged, right? And it's not that you were blaming, but you weren't in the energy that you're in right now today. Right. So in those times, like, yes, we lean in. Yes, we have different conversations. Yes, it's the time to lean in, not to lean out. Right. Okay, that was a lot of information today crammed in one call because those are two pretty significant topics. But in our last few minutes together, any questions, comments, feedback, shares, anything you feel inspired to say, would love to hear it.
I'm sorry,
I got
Maisha
some.
had her hand up for quite some time there, and then she
Okay,
left. Yep.
thank you, Selena. We'll start with Maisha.
Sorry, I had it up and then I let it down just because you were pretty much touching on something that when I first got in this business, there was a lady who I thought like, oh, she can mentor me. Like I just loved her energy. I just loved everything that she brought to this training that I was in. And I mean, I was in the business maybe all of 2, 3 months at this point. And since I'm like 10 years in, this lady has probably been at 10 different brokerages. And she's like like a broker who like ends up, you know, managing different brokers' offices. But every time I turn around, she's somewhere else. And that's what it's like. She's constantly following the new shiny object instead of like staying put and putting, you know, the work in somewhere. It's like, ooh, let me go over here. Let me see what they're going to give me. Let me see what they'll allow me to do. And it's like every time I see her post something on social media, I swear she's at a new brokerage. So it's like those are people that you would never even try to go after or talk to because you're like, they're going to be the ones, like you said, 3 to 5 years. This lady would probably be 6 months to a year.
Yeah. And a great way to manage your own energy, right? Fantastic. Thank you for that. Mo, it looked like you were off mute. Did I see you were coming off mute?
No, but if you want me to talk, I'll say something. Let's do it. Let's go. No, I love this because I mean, at the end of the day, you know, mastery is all about, you know, there's different levels to this, right? And I feel like, you know, boredom or, you know, complacency happens when you just don't know how to break to that next level, right? Of mastery. And there's just so many levels to this. And I love this. I love this call today just because I know that, you know, I myself don't like to be bored, right? But I'm also not the guy looking for the next shiny object. You know, I know what I have when I have it, and I get excited to be surrounded by people like you and everybody in this call. So, yeah, just learn to just learn about yourself, learn how to, you know, manage your energy, and learn how to attract. I think that's the best way to recruit. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
I love it. And when you decide you're in something for the long haul, like you're in it for the long haul and that's your story, right? So like I can say when I get on a call with Will, like Will's been here and you know, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if you're still here, we'll be in communication because we'll still be here. Right. And to know that you like have picked a place to call home and put a stake in the ground and that you didn't make that decision haphazardly. You took time to make that decision and you're going to stand behind that decision and continue to grow and build through all of the unknowns and different iterations of what growth will inevitably look like, which is a really individual journey. So thank you guys for being on today. Great to see all of your faces. This recording will be housed on that same link on the resources site under the builders call. Each call has its own channel on YouTube to make it easy for you to find if you want to go back and re-listen or share it or grab some of the word tracking in it. Super grateful for each one of you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your contributions on the call today. And this will conclude the call for now. Thank you.